Hey guys, so I'm talking about Candlemas or Midwinter or Imbolc, depending on what you want to call it. I thought I'd say a little bit about this Sabbat if maybe you're new, or even if you're not, I might have some different ideas on how to celebrate it, because I'm going to show you what I'm doing. But I come up with different things all the time, so and I like to always search out and try different things. So this Sabbat is generally celebrated anywhere between February 1st through the 5th. Most people do celebrate it on either the 1st or the 2nd, but I guess I think it's traditionally done when the sun reaches about 15 degrees in Aquarius. But I'm not big on that. I don't follow that too closely. Mostly I just do it when I actually have time, and so usually 1st or 2nd, but it can be celebrated up and through the 5th. So one of the biggest things is a lot of people associate this Sabbat with the Lady of the Hearth, and so I mean, fire is a big deal. I myself, I like doing fires with my friend at her house. She has a fire pit, so we kind of designated her fire pit for kind of ritual fires. But also with this, if you want to build a small fire in your house, that doesn't sound safe, but in your cauldron. I don't do it inside this cauldron because the walls aren't thick enough, but if you have one of the thicker cast iron cauldrons and you do it safely, that's an option, because what you can do is write out on a small slip of paper a request and drop it into a fire. And that's kind of, yeah, it's just a way of incorporating the goddess into your practice. Also with candles, if you don't want to actually build a fire. I always feel like I'm rambling. But with candles, if you light a candle, like I do this a lot, especially in my house, because then I don't, when I'm not over at my friend's house. I like to light candles. That's why I usually refer to this Sabbat as Candlemas, because I associate it with a lot of candle lighting. I light candles in her honor, and it represents a wish, or my intentions that I wish to, like, kind of like planting your seeds now, so that when in spring you can keep these things going, like kind of like imagining them actual plants, your wishes as actual seeds, and keep growing them throughout the year. So you still have to put the effort in, just like gardening, but it's a way to start it, because I like to see, like, winter is still a time for planning, and spring is a time to start moving it forward. So that's kind of how I see things. Let's see. So I guess that's mostly what I do for this Sabbat. I'm not quite, I try to incorporate new things, but mainly I keep this one as the time to sow your seeds for the next year. And on with my other part, which I already filmed, but I want to add it second, because I wanted a little more introduction onto what the Sabbat means to me. And now I will turn over to the next clip. Okay, so I'm trying to see if this camera angle will work, but I'm using a owl cookie cutter, and I'm just tracing the top part, because I don't need the feet, so I'm just trying to get this top part, because it looks like what I'd want, because it's got the head and the body, and putting it down on my piece of felt. I'm using cardboard underneath because a marker will bleed through. And I'm just going to make an outline, giving myself a little room between the actual cutter and where I'm tracing so that I can cut it out and have a little seam allowance. So it's just kind of like that. And if you don't have a cookie cutter, you can always just freehand, or it's not a terribly difficult shape. It's kind of like a almost teddy bear looking for a groundhog. And then for the bottom, you just go across, so it's not a big deal. So I'm just going to cut that out and make 2 of them, and then I've already got one cut out. We'll stitch around the edge, leaving the bottom, this shows it better, leaving this bottom edge unstitched so that you can flip it around. That's why you stitch with the any kind of the marker showing up, so that it will, when we flip it inside out, any marker will be inside the actual groundhog. So this is just kind of, I think, the more complicated part of what I'm doing. And then I suppose the next one that would actually be more complicated is going to be the mound, so I'm going to show you basically what I did for that. Okay, so for the mound, I kind of just envisioned how big I want the actual mound to be. I'm going to then take a strip that's twice its length, and we will be folding this over. And next we're just going to stitch the sides. First we'll stitch this edge. We don't have to stitch this edge because it's already together. And then we'll stitch corners here so that it will be like a mound, leaving the top unstitched because that's where the groundhog will poke out. And then of course we'll have to stitch the bottom. And I'm going to take a picture showing the actual stitches. I'm going to use thread that you'll be able to see. You in person will want to probably match whatever cloth you chose so that the stitches don't actually show up, but I'm going to exaggerate my stitches so that you can see them on camera. Okay, the next step, after you've sewn around the edge, keeping the bottom open, and on these, keeping the top where your little groundhog will eventually stick out, but we're going to have to flip these to the correct side now. So we're just going to stick our finger in there and push them out. And I exaggerated the stitch color so that it would show up, but you're probably going to want to choose a stitch color that will match the color of the cloth that you're going to use, so it's not so pronounced. But it's kind of, and then you can just push out the little ears. So he's ready. He just needs his face now, and he can need some little stuffing on the inside. And I'm going to glue on the parts on the face. So he's done with the actual stitching part, except for closing up the bottom after stuffing him. And we'll flip in the same. This is going to be the little hole he pops out of. So I'll flip that inside out. I'm sorry for the camera angle. I don't have a proper tripod, and so it's a little close. Just have it kind of rigged up. See, I got it all stitched for the mound, and I guess I'll have to point out that that's why we had those side stitches like that, so that they would hold it into this kind of shape. And so he can go into his little hole and come out. And I've finished making the flower part so far. I've just randomly cut petal types and glued these pieces together. And it's just going to be a little accessory. I plan to put like a Velcro piece on here so that it can stick if, you know, it's going to be spring coming soon, or I haven't made the snowflake yet, but a snowflake if we're expecting a longer winter. So I thought that'd be kind of a nice little thing to do. And I'm going to finish up the other pieces, and I will try to take pictures because this camera angle is not going to work very well. It's really poor quality, and I don't think I want to stick you through all of that. Okay, so to make the snowflake, I try to do it a couple of ways because I'm making this up as I go, and I realized to make a kind of simple snowflake was still very complicated, and you can't fold felt enough to do it just like you would paper. So I already had made the flower, so I knew what size I was looking for. So to match sizes, I figured I was going to have to make a square about the same size as my flower. Since the flower, I just randomly cut petals out and then slowly just glued the layers up. This is double thickness, and then I just kind of copied each side, so these aren't glued completely because I wasn't sure if I was going to stick leaves in here. I did actually end up cutting them out for the leaves. Let me see if I can grab it. I just never attached them because I thought this was enough, so I left it at that, even though I'd already made leaves that I thought if I wanted to I could stick them between the petals, but I thought this was already busy enough just with the flower itself. So but with the leaves I also just freehand cut them, and then for this it's 2 layers again, and I stitched on one layer first and then glued the 2 layers together so it doesn't show up on the back, just the front. And I kind of also did that with the same thing with his face. I made little stitches for his freckles or whiskers, whatever, first before gluing everything else that I wanted to glue down on, so that it wouldn't show up because the stitches would be first. But for the snowflake, I did end up finding that this post-it note was exactly the right size what I wanted. So I just took a post-it note, folded it up like you can find online, but you just it's easier to show this. Fold it diagonally, and then it's hard to explain. I guess I could show you, but honestly, making a snowflake is pretty. There's different ways to fold it and cut it, and you can just Google that and make your own. I made mine, like I said, simple because I was planning on cutting it out, tracing it and cutting it out, and I didn't want it too complicated, so I made as simple of a snowflake as I could. And that's basically what I did. I just put it over my felt and just traced it out on here and then cut it out. And this is glittery, so it's kind of fun. And then I made small stitches. I took the blue layer and this white layer first, made tiny stitches in white around just a couple of spots, just tiny ones, like leaving most of it like free so that it can eventually curl up and look more three-dimensional. And then after I did that, I glued the back one so that all three layers are connected. The top layer and the blue layer are connected by stitches, but the back layer and the blue layer are connected by glue. So if that makes sense. And these layers below it, I just made a circle, and then after I glued them together, then I just went around the edge and recut them out, following the snowflake white one that I used as a template. Alright, and then lastly, here's the little mound. I added Velcro to the front and the backs of the flower and the snowflake, so whatever the groundhog sees, then you can attach that one and we will know. And you can reuse these year after year depending on, and they're kind of cute and fun to do if you have kids. My cat keeps trying to steal this, so I might make her one without the googly eyes and maybe just either stitch eyes or just use a marker and fill it with a little catnip because she really likes this. That's been hard. I wanted to put this on my altar, but she likes it, and she doesn't normally go on my altar, so I don't want to encourage her to go on my altar, so I might have to put this somewhere else. But I thought it was a fun little decoration just to get you in the spirit of, is it going to be spring? Is it going to continue to snow? So midwinter, you know, you never know what's going to happen at this time of year, so it's kind of a fun little prediction. And I thought it was super cute. So I will be back with the other video that I did for another little thing you can do for this Sabbat, and I will be right back. Okay, so another little simple thing that you can do for this Sabbat is create a little ice holder for a candle. And these are great for setting outside if you have your own place and wanting to decorate maybe your walkway or something. And the good thing about them is it brings the two, the elements together. And but here I got, what I just did was, it's really, like I said, really simple. It's just creating ice, basically. Finding a container, make sure that you find something that is plastic so that it's not going to shatter. And if it's cold enough, you can just leave these outside to freeze, or you can pop them in your freezer. So I just used a container with its lid. I used the lid for this one and put the container in to create the indentation. And I put a weight in here. Now if when I notice if you get really technical and you want it like just so high in thickness on the bottom, no, not me. I just put a bunch of weight in, and then when I was done, when it froze the first time, I popped this off, and then it was really thin on the bottom, of course, because you had the weight pushing way down into it. I just added a little bit more water and froze it again so that the bottom is thicker. I found that a lot easier than trying to manipulate the weight so it floats just right. Because, I mean, it's ice, you can always put more water in. So that this one, I decorated it with just some bay leaves. So they're frozen in there. And it's perfect. Now it's just a nice little candle holder. And I did similar with this. I used a cup. And then I did add a little extra water in the bottom after I did the original. Now this one did float about, so I tried to steady it as much as possible using tape on all four sides to hold it kind of in the center. But like I said, I just put a lot of weight in to get it all the way down, and then when it froze initially, removed the cup, added some more water in the bottom, and let it freeze so that it was thicker in the bottom. This one's still a little bit, there we go. So this one's a little more rounded shape. So you can use any containers you want. This one, I used a little bit of a mixture. This one I used some black tea and like rose petal and stuff. It smells good. Anyway, these are I'm going to set them outside, and I live in an apartment, so I have to kind of monitor it, and when I'm done using them, I gotta make sure I take the candle out. But I can leave these outside because they will just eventually melt, and everything is biodegradable, so I thought it was a nice little addition that you can do, and if it's your house, then you don't have to worry about removing anything right away. But I just thought this would be a nice, fun little thing to share with you because it joins the element of fire and ice for this Sabbath. Right. I will see you again, and blessed be.